Hi, I'm Lady Genevieve. I thought that I would be taking a little bit of time off to work on a big video project that I want to make for June, but then I remembered that it's my birthday this week and I want to at least hit 14K by then, or if not then definitely by the end of the month. Quick reminder before we get into today's topic, do not post book spoilers in my comments that are coming from books 3 onward. You can talk about book 1, book 2, season 1, season 2 in as much detail as you'd like, but no book spoilers after that. None. People still keep pushing it and testing limits. Stop it. You're more than welcome to go talk about spoilers in the comments of booktubers who have already posted videos talking at length about all of the books in the series. For today's video, I wanted to talk a little bit about Eloise and Theo because I haven't really given their relationship much airtime on my channel yet, and I was asked by viewers in my comments what my thoughts were on them. I was never aiming to avoid talking about them, it's just that there was a lot of material to talk about, especially from season 2. So some things just weren't going to make the cut on a first or second sweep. But I would like to think that we are gradually making our way through more of that material. Just as a general introduction, I do like Eloise and Theo as a couple. I thought they were really cute together, I liked their chemistry, and there were more layers to their material than I think a lot of people gave them credit for. I think part of why Eloise and Theo haven't been given their fair share of the praise is that more or less anything and everything that wasn't Kate or Anthony in season 2 ended up being overshadowed by Kate and Anthony. Not only because Kate and Anthony were the main couple of the season, but because of how well their story was done and how much chemistry Jonathan Bailey and Simone Ashley had with each other as performers. This meant that other romantic subplots such as Colin and Penelope, Eloise and Theo, and even Benedict and Tessa did not receive as much attention. The Queen and the King had a bit more dramatic impact in season 2 that helped them to stand out, but for very different reasons, obviously. Another factor that may have colored some of the response to Eloise and Theo as a couple is that in the books, Eloise's endgame love interest is someone else entirely. And I have not read her book. Like I've said multiple times, I'm waiting to read the other books until after I see the Netflix adaptations of them, but I am, in a general sense, aware of the fact that Theo is not a character that she ends up with in the books. Since I personally have not read her book, I currently have no opinion or attachment to that story, so I was free to judge Eloise and Theo's relationship solely based on what happened in season 2. However, if you are someone that has read her book, and additionally someone that likes that story, then it wouldn't be surprising that you might feel more closed off to the notion of Eloise having a romantic subplot playing out with someone else. I was late to watching Bridgerton as a show, so I don't know with absolute certainty, but I believe that some fans had a similar response to Anthony's romantic subplot in season 1 with Sienna. Why should I care about Anthony with Sienna when I'm already invested in his relationship with Kate, even if she has not appeared in the show yet, let alone had any scenes with Anthony? For Eloise and Theo, like I said before, I liked their chemistry, but I also liked that they fulfilled a criteria I have for all of the Bridgerton romances, which is that it had its own unique identity. I don't want to see the same template for a romance story with just different characters swapped in. And I mean that beyond simplified tropes such as enemies to lovers or friends to lovers. I mean it in the deepest sense of identity in your storytelling and character material. Even though Theo was a new character, I still felt like I got a fairly decent sense of who he was. I think I also related more to him as a character than I think viewers of my Bridgerton videos might expect, and this brings us to a talking point that could easily be its own video in one form or another. I have complicated feelings about the way Bridgerton does or does not handle the topic of class.
Some of y'all about to be real mad at me, but it must be said.
A lot of Hollywood fiction has stands on Twitter praising and hyping landlords, cops, and mascots for the military-industrial complex. But a whole lot of those folks are not ready to have that conversation yet. Bridgerton doesn't necessarily fall into the latter portion of that list I just provided. It's definitely not another insufferable propaganda project, of which there are several produced by Hollywood, but it's still not exactly good at handling the social inequality of class. I'm going to try to condense this a little bit because I could easily get long-winded about this, but I'll try to narrow it down a little bit more, at least to what I need to explain as it applies to my thoughts on Eloise and Theo. A lot of people love watching Bridgerton because it's about romance and in many ways is treated as escapism. Why would we, the larger audience, want escapism in fiction? Because we're being crushed under the oppressive boot of capitalism. Theo is one of the first real working class characters we've been able to get to know as viewers of the show, besides the Mondridges, of course. And I'm obviously going to relate more to him when he's serving Eloise a reality check about her privilege than I am Eloise going on half-baked rants about straight marriage being a prison for women. She didn't describe it as straight marriage, that's my own personal editorializing. Bridgerton may have improved on the source material in the adaptation process. That's my personal opinion. You can disagree if you want to. Go make your own videos about it. However, Bridgerton as a show, in my opinion, is not as revolutionary as some people seem to claim it to be, at least not in a political sense. What is Bridgerton as a show most famous for? Romance, salacious scenes, and the historical revisionism which they did in the show's universe so that people of different ethnic and cultural backgrounds could have leading roles in the main romances of some of the seasons. Not all. Some. Because, as we all know now, season 3 is Colin and Penelope's season.
Not a joke, just a fact.
So in your show's universe, racism has been solved, apparently. It's just not a problem anymore. Cool, love that. However, sexism still exists. The fact that these women of the Ton have to go on the hunt for a husband is because they live in a perpetual state of economic anxiety that the men of the Ton are largely able to avoid. Well, most of them anyway.
The only empty thing I have are those mines, Portia. They're an utter failure. I have nothing.
Eloise has been introduced as this rebellious spirit who wants to rage against the mainstream Ton culture, and I love that, I really do. However, she really doesn't know as much as she thinks that she does. Women there are not allowed to go to school, and she doesn't exactly come from a revolutionary family. There are no comrades around her to give her a reading list, but you know who can? Theo.
I've read all of these. I set them aside for you.
Huh? Let's talk about that.
To really understand Eloise's starting point as a character before she begins spending a lot more time with Theo, I think one of the most important scenes to look at is the one where she and Penelope are sitting with those other girls of the Ton, and they're talking about potential husbands and how their mothers have picked out certain men for them.
I quite like Lord Westbridge, though his hands certainly do wander when he dances.
At least he is young. My mamma has fixed on Sir Derryworth for me. His breath is excruciating.
Eloise asks why they don't just say no to their mothers.
Why do you not just say no, then?
To our mamas.
I do not think it is that simple, Elle.
I do everything my mama says. You still wonder why you're so miserable.
I don't care if you tell me that in this universe, racism has been solved. It doesn't mean that global cultures are just all the same now into just a homogenous blob. So what you're showing me is a white woman who comes from a generationally wealthy family.
I am a white woman
telling 3 Asian women and 1 black woman to just stop listening to their mothers altogether, and she scoffs at the notion that such a thing might not be that simple. Eloise has good intentions, I don't deny that, but she is extremely out of touch. And I would love to see her keep exploring her relationship with Theo because of more than just the fact that I think that they're cute together. He is able to introduce her to important literature, new ideas, and from what little we saw of them, what I saw being set up was that revolutionary reading and mobilizing against the bourgeoisie is potentially their love language. Of course I was going to be hyped about something like that. I also really loved that the interest she had in spending time with him was not something she associated with romance initially.
This is not...
If women's rights are what you're after, then perhaps that is what you need to be reading. New thoughts, unsettling ideas. Not too unsettling for you, I hope.
I like that it was about this hunger to learn more about revolutionary ideas. Ideas that the Ton would and did aggressively condemn.
For she's apparently been associating unchaperoned with improper company. Political radicals, in fact.
It really wasn't until she was talking with Penelope that she started to contemplate that maybe he was interested in her romantically, and that she was also interested in him in that way. And for Eloise to go from this more brash, straightforward, unfiltered, opinionated delivery to actually being more vulnerable in emotionally opening herself up to a cute boy she's developing an attraction to is really sweet for me to watch. There are layers to this. Eloise is someone who has been very disinterested in the whole Ton culture and the institution of marriage, especially because of how intertwined it is with the patriarchal capitalistic oppression of women.
Perhaps Miss Edwina realised that marriage is in fact a prison for women.
Oh, must you always be so... you?
How else should I be? Married and silent.
That's why it's so endearing to see her discover the joys of finding that genuine attraction to another person. I know Anthony had that line at the end of the season about, "I will humble myself," which we all loved. But I also loved seeing Eloise being humbled in a way, because she really ran her mouth against a lot of other women in both season 1 and 2 in a way that wasn't only about critiquing the oppressive institutions that take away agency from women in this universe, but it was also quite condescending and belittling to any women who might genuinely have an interest in putting energy into looking for a husband to settle down, get married, and have kids with. Eloise has something that very few other women get to have when finding a romantic connection, insofar as hers happens spontaneously and organically. Eloise and Theo don't meet under the circumstances of either one of them looking for a spouse or any type of romantic connection, and they don't bond under the rigid constraints of Ton culture or just the generally oppressive social rules of the time period. The Ton culture and the time period are very restrictive, so we've seen more than once now that the couples on this show need to break those rules in order to be sufficiently compelling and entertaining for the audience to watch. Daphne and Simon were only pretending to be dating at first, so they were able to develop more of a friendship free from the rules of decorum. Anthony and Kate were constantly bickering because of a number of reasons, and Colin and Penelope have had a sort of friendship throughout the show that gives them more room to speak with each other to an extent that they would not be able to do if they didn't already have this pre-existing overlap in their families, where Penelope has established friendships with both Eloise and Colin. Eloise and Theo met because she was on the hunt in her investigation into Lady Whistledown's true identity, and Theo was just trying to do his job, which we love that for him. In this household, we love and respect workers. If someone respects your mind and wants to hear your thoughts on important socio-political issues, and they're going to share their reading list of how to overthrow capitalism, that is love. I know Theo never said the words overthrow capitalism, but I'm just projecting subtext onto that exchange. Don't mind me. How are you going to tell me that you're going to better the lives of women without taking into account class disparity? Freeing the women of the Ton from having to marry to obtain financial security means nothing if you've got all these people of all genders in this really bad neighborhood working themselves to the bone just to survive and afford life's most basic and fundamental necessities. Anyway, we all saw that Eloise and Theo had a breakup at the end of season 2, which I did feel the emotional impact of, because I felt like they were both correct. She was trying to protect him from the dangers of being targeted by the Queen, and he was right, because being suspicious of generationally wealthy people is a very smart survival instinct to have. You know that they're both upset because they both care. Their feelings and emotions are invested in each other, and that's why halting their romantic momentum hurts both of them. Obviously, in the grand scheme of season 2, I was never as invested in these two as Kate and Anthony. That's why I've put a lot more hours of labor and given more airtime to Kate and Anthony here on my channel. But since I was asked about Eloise and Theo, those are some of my thoughts on their material with each other and the deeper dimensions of the commentary in their story. I personally would love for Eloise to rekindle things with Theo because I think she can learn a lot more from spending time with him and the working class in general. If we take a real life example, somebody like Jane Fonda was boosted into a Hollywood career by nepotism, but she still became a comrade who was out here raging against the war machine. And she never would have started doing any of that if she hadn't met people who were able to introduce those revolutionary ideas to her. She had the government spying on her and coming after her. She was hiding Black Panthers in her house. Now, I'm not saying that Bridgerton has the space in the runtime to do anything on that level for Eloise as a character. Genre-wise, it's not really the main focus, but I personally would like to see her grow more informed in her activism because that's a way of showing her growth as a character. If you are outraged by the idea of her rekindling things with Theo because you are invested in whatever happens in her book, that's fine. You can think that. I'm just not going to form an opinion on her book until they hopefully renew the show for a season 5. And then I guess if they want to still have her end up with her book love interest, then we can revisit that conversation then. But for now, discussing that part of the Bridgerton source material will have to be put on pause. If you'd like to debate it, you're more than welcome to do that in the comments of a different YouTube channel that is not mine. Probably a booktuber who has already posted videos sharing their opinions about the entire series. I myself have clicked on some of those videos, but I just go to the timestamps that show them talking about books 1 and 2, and then I click off because I don't want to know anything else. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching. Let me know your thoughts on Eloise and Theo. If you would like for me to pick a team of Eloise with Theo versus Eloise and her book love interest, then I guess we've all got to keep supporting and hyping Bridgerton on Netflix so that it will get renewed for season 5, and hopefully, presumably, that will in fact be Eloise's season, and we can see if I have an opinion to share about that potentially heated debate at that point in time. Please consider subscribing to my channel and liking and commenting on this video to help me on my journey to, well, at least 20K. Is that too much to ask? The tentative plan is still to try to do a Benedict video sometime in July, so we'll see if anything comes in and flips my plans upside down. But if everything goes according to plan, then I will see all of you then. Bye.